Hey Stags fans, welcome back to another episode of From the Director's Chair. My name is JJ Duke. Alongside me is the Director of Athletics, Paul Schlickman. Paul, it's been a little while since we've last chatted. It seemed like the entirety of the fall season has come and gone, but it's a big time right here at Fairfield.
Usually happens that way. It's good to be back in the chair. No, once you get rolling, it's like a dead sprint, I think, until Thanksgiving. So the fall just seems to kind of get rolling and keep going that way.
A lot of home games across many sports and a lot of victories as well. And I think that's a key place to start because Fairfield University women's soccer back in the postseason, double-digit victories overall. They have already locked up the number 2 seed with one match to go. And I always kind of hear it in my head, Dave Barrett telling me that we're getting there. We're getting there. Well, I mean, it's a young team, but they've certainly shown a lot this year.
Well, if you're a believer in the phrase trust the process, Coach Barrett is certainly a strong proponent of that. He's done an amazing job. He and his staff, great staff. And it's been really fun to see the progression of that program from even within the confines of this season, from their first game and viewing them and their evolution over the course of the year in terms of just their overall confidence and style of play and their aggressiveness. It's really tremendous. And so it's great to see them at this point now and seeing some success, a lot more soccer to play, so it's really fun to watch that.
And one thing that's really been fun to watch with this team, in addition to the youth, but it's a lot of goals that are coming in. It seems like they're scoring from left, right, and center, and obviously the fans want to see attacking soccer, and we're certainly getting it.
If you compare where we are offensively in all our categories from last year to this year, dramatic difference, certainly exponential increases, but starting to see some national recognition for that in terms of their statistical categories and obviously in the region as well. So it's an indicator of their player development process and obviously the type of student athletes they're bringing into the program now.
So it's going to be a 6-team postseason tournament in the MAC. Fairfield is, as I said, locked up the 2nd seed, so they'll get a bye to the semifinals. And I can tell you this much, semifinal is going to be on Thursday, November the 7th over at Lessing Field. And for those who have gone to the men's postseason matches over the last couple of years, it is a really great atmosphere to be a part of. So if you've been there before, make sure to show up because the players love that extra support and they're certainly going to need it.
Well, they're certainly in a great frame of mind. It's always great to play a home game and to secure that's something that they can build towards and get their mindset around, certainly with a team that hasn't had a lot of playoff experience as of late. So great opportunity for them, and you're right, it's a great venue to have a MAC playoff game. So we're really excited about that and looking forward to them and excited for the opportunity for the kids.
Another team that we already know that's going to be playing in the postseason, though it's going to be in the Northeast Conference, is Fairfield Field Hockey. And this is a group, another very young team, but they have certainly put together a great year where they've been ranked through the majority of the season. They've put together a number of long winning streaks. They're already in the postseason tournament, a share of the regular season title. And it was kind of told to me earlier this year that they don't know any better, but they just keep winning.
Yeah, they are an amazing season, and the narrative of that season, like they've beaten some incredibly highly regarded opponents in some highly regarded conferences. I think the latest is that we've got wins against every of 8 conferences, and with 1 remaining to get a win against every conference that sponsors the sport of Division I field hockey. So an incredible season, and yes, with a relatively young group of student athletes, which I think gets us even more excited about what's ahead for that program. But amazing season, really proud of them. Coach Kane and her staff have done an amazing job, and she and I talk after every game, and they've had a lot of very close victories and a bunch of overtime victories. And I think the sign of a good team, particularly a young team, is when you figure out ways to win close games, and they're certainly figuring out how to do that. Perhaps some of it naivete, but I think as the season progresses, I think it's changing from that into confidence. So I'm really excited for them, and I think it's going to be a fun home stretch.
Yeah, a couple more games to go left at home this season. If you haven't been over to University Field, make sure to check it out. And of course, for everything Fairfield Stags athletics, make sure to go fairfieldstags.com. And another team that's certainly trending in the right direction, we go inside alumni, and Fairfield volleyball, they're back where we expect them to be, and they're just dominating the league.
We're having a pretty good fall, aren't we?
That we are.
JJ. I mean, it's really fun. And volleyball, again, a relatively young team, and getting some incredible production from those players. So it speaks to the caliber of student athletes they have in the program. Cohesive unit. Coach Kress and his staff done an amazing job having them develop over the course of the season. Excited to see what they can do down the stretch leading into hosting it in Alumni Hall. And the last time we did that, my first year here, we had an incredible atmosphere. So certainly looking forward to recreating that.
Absolutely. That's going to be over November 22nd through the 24th. And third time in the last 4 years that this program is hosting. So obviously a great opportunity. Fairfield can make sure they get themselves in that tournament. First job not done there. But still plenty to come. And a couple other teams notably coming down the stretch, men's soccer, a little bit of a challenging start. They certainly put themselves in, they had some work to do. Last couple of home matches, getting 3 points in each of those. They still have one key home contest left against Canisius. They have to get some results, have to get some help elsewhere, but they're not going down without a fight.
Yeah, they got some work to do down the stretch. I think they're turning the corner a little bit. I hope so. They've been able to score some goals in the last 2 home matches, and I think they're getting a little bit of confidence, getting their rhythm going. They have been admittedly a work in progress over the course of the year. They've had a hard time manufacturing some goals along the way, but gaining some momentum at the right time. And it's all about, as you know, in conference play, trying to peak at the right time so that you're hot going into the conference tournament. But they got some work ahead of them to get there, but I'm confident that they'll get it done.
Yeah, we've seen that group never give up in the past, come through with a couple of late results, so something to keep an eye on. And also cross country, they're going to be getting underway in their MAC championship meet coming up this weekend down in New Jersey. And always it's a fun time to start seeing championship play because that's when it counts.
Yeah, you mentioned at the outset just how quickly the fall has gone. So I said to my staff this morning, I can't believe that we're actually on the heels of our first conference championship weekend. So our cross-country runners will get to start that off, and we wish them all the best. 2 programs that have been developing over the course of the last couple of years, so we're hopeful that they can see an uptick in their performance as well.
We talk about how the fall is kind of just rapidly closing. Well, that means one thing. Basketball season is here. So it's a full schedule that we have on tap in the 2019-2020 season for both the men and the women. The men get going at home against Bucknell on November the 5th. Then they're going to be home a couple of days later against UMass. Like I said, it's exciting to get the season going. And if you look around social media, there's a lot of buzz about this team, especially what Jay Young is doing. Obviously, practice is one thing, but now it's an opportunity for them to get going in front of the fans.
No doubt. There's been, I think, since we transitioned with the coaching staff, there's certainly been a great sense of excitement and energy and positive thinking towards the men's program, and that has continued to evolve in a positive way over the course of the summer. And now we just had our Red Sea Madness event this past Friday. Great turnout for both programs. A lot of excitement and energy on campus in the community for those programs and the onset of basketball season. So really excited to get that rolling and to see what happens. And around here, basketball means a lot, both on the men's and women's side. We've had great tradition with both, and so to see what we can do in a new season, in a new era, and a new time, we're really excited about that and looking forward to it.
And also, you mentioned as the women as well, they get underway on the same day, actually, November the 5th against Temple. Their first home game just going to be a little under 2 weeks after that when they take on Dartmouth on the 17th. And, as you talk about great tradition, Fairfield women's basketball, always a team that's right in the mix, and we're expecting more of the same this year.
I think so. I think they've, they went through some adversity last year on a number of fronts. I think they're healthy going into this season. I think they've got more depth, and I think Coach is excited about the early season and what he's seen in their workouts and their development. Our preseason ranking probably speaks to the consistency of that program being right in the middle of the pack, and I think that's how people in the league view us, as kind of always there lurking, ready to make a run. So we're hopefully that, we can turn the corner a little bit this year and get back to that upper echelon of the league.
Like I said, basketball season right upon us right now. If you haven't already gotten your tickets or making sure where you can go watch the games, fairfieldstags.com is your place to be. It's always a part of this conversation where we get to talk about the outstanding work of our student athletes in the classroom, and it was just recently announced a graduation success rate right at the top where Fairfield always is, 96% among the best of the best in Division I.
Amazing accomplishments and results. Really proud of that, certainly from my chair and what our student athletes are able to accomplish. I think it's a tribute to the caliber of student athletes that we recruit. Hopefully it speaks to the caliber of education they're receiving while they're here at Fairfield and the support systems that we provide for them so that they're able to kind of continue that success from freshman through their senior year and then graduate in good stead. Another reason why it's so important to us is that is one avenue in which, when you talk about Fairfield kind of being in the national spotlight and us wanting to continue to enhance that scope and that notoriety and that exposure, this is one area where we are literally on a national stage. So we are in the top 10% of all Division I programs, give or take, in this category. And that's really exciting. Again, it speaks to the caliber of this institution and type of educational experience they get here. So really proud of that and proud of the great work of our student athletes towards that end and all our coaches and staff who foster them through that process. So it's really exciting. It's always good to kind of have that come out and see that notoriety that we get in that regard.
Like I always said, it always puts a big smile on your face whenever we get to talk about academics.
There's a lot of things that are great about this business, if you will, of college athletics, but when you see the holistic success of your student athletes at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And so we're doing that really well.
Now it's an opportunity for you, the folks at home, to ask this man over here any questions that you have. It's our Ask Paul segment. If you want to send in your questions, it's fairfieldstags.com/askpaul. Now, the last time that we met was just under, as I said, 2 months ago. We were sitting on top of, well, the parking garage over there looking at Alumni Hall. That was a day where I got massively sunburnt. We're not going to talk about that. But since that announcement, it was a day where we got a lot of feedback about, the fans at home want to know more about the Convocation Center. Now, we can't ask every question, so we're going to kind of just combine it all into one. Do you have any updates on where we're looking right now at the Convocation Center?
I wouldn't be smiling if I didn't think we're in making continued progress towards making this a reality. Let's put it that way. We have, since we made that announcement and sat on the top of that parking garage overlooking the new site, we've made more progress and added to the till, if you will, on the fundraising side. We still have some more work to do. So if there's prospective donors out there who'd still like to contribute toward that end, we're certainly still working to get to that final number that we need to get to, but making great progress and continuing to not only hone in on the kind of the nuts and bolts of the final aspects of the scope and design, but now we're getting into, now that we feel like it's more of a reality, if you will, we're trying to hone in on some of the realities of the transition piece. Obviously, what we're having a good plan in place for our teams to play their games elsewhere during that course of that year.
Sure.
And all the nuts and bolts that go along with, what will be, a year to a year and a half of transition when we have to take care of some business. And so there's some things we need to look at during that time period, and then also, beginning to plan for our operational plan once we open the doors. So I would say we're really honing in on that right now, and you can't be too far ahead with that.
And the thing that I'm curious about is how much, because you have all of your duties day in, day out, but how much do you have to also put aside to make sure that everything goes smoothly with the Convocation Center in this planning and then initial execution?
Right. Yeah, I think it's critical, because it's such a marquee building for us, not just from an athletic standpoint, as we've talked about on many occasions, but it's an incredible asset for the university, and so we have to treat it as such. So the planning piece, in terms of leading up to the construction piece or the demolition piece and the construction piece, the building phase, and then the operational phase, they're all critical, and we have to make sure that we're getting all the right people, all the critical folks to plan for that and put an operational plan and transition plan in place. So that's what we're continuing to focus on, and we've got some really smart people on this campus who are really vested in not only this project but multiple projects and everything we do, and so we're trying to tap into that and make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction with it.
So we talk about the future a little bit, but let's kind of roll back to the present here. Good question that came in. Some people want to know, what are the major focus points that the athletics department has for this year? Obviously, we talk about the Convocation Center. That's to come, but what are some of the things that maybe Fairfield's already achieved, or some things that you're looking to achieve through the rest of this year?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And without getting too specific about it, obviously we just hit a major one. There's an obvious reality for us to plan effectively for that and get that rolling. So that's a big chunk of what we're doing. Beyond that, I would say we're continuing to try and develop the infrastructure we need, and that's a broad term, to achieve our expectations. We want to achieve excellence across the board and establish a department that is achieving excellence across the board in everything that we do, obviously competitively, but in all aspects of the educational experience we're providing for our student athletes. So there's a whole slew of different aspects to that. We have obviously made some significant changes with 2 high-profile programs, and so with those transitions comes changes in personnel. So we are very different. We look very different than we were 2 years ago when I came on board. So we've had changes. So we're continuing to try and create an infrastructure that optimizes our ability to succeed. Part of that is people and effectively transitioning them and making sure those programs transition effectively to achieve success. We're continuing to try and evaluate the rest of our infrastructure facility-wise and make continued improvements with that. And trying to optimize the student-athlete development aspect of the program that we have for our student-athletes and continue to put those in place so that we are living up to our mission and vision and cultural commitments and all the things we put in place relative to that. So we've created a lot of the foundation for a strategic plan, which we are in the process of drafting. So it's a gradual evolutionary process. The timing is good for us to engage in strategic planning because the institution is now just finishing what was a 5-year 2020 master plan.
Right.
We're in the interim piece now, and I would say fairly athletics is probably in that interim phase too, where we're building our base and then we're going to create a more holistic strategic plan for the future that aligns with the timing and the mission and vision for the university strategic plan. So there's a lot of moving parts to it, but hopefully that gives some general sense that we're continuing to try and have athletics get to the point where we are achieving the same sense of trajectory that Dr. Nemec is trying to put us in as a university. And that's, the modern Jesuit university. We want to be the model for the Division I student-athlete experience. And so everything we're doing is leading towards that end.
Absolutely. One other last question that came in as well, and we talked often about our student-athletes, not only in the fields, but in the classroom, but also the great amount of community service that they do. And this was one that was asking, in addition to the students and what they do within the community, but also coach visibility as well. And, it's an important part of the fact of not only Fairfield University, but any athletics, to have your coaches and your teams be visible just outside of the dimensions of the campus.
Sure, and you said it correctly. There's the concept of service to others is a core component of the whole Jesuit philosophy and value system. And I think our department, our athletes do as good a job as anybody I've ever had the privilege of being around. So we had last year, we've thrown the numbers around, but over 7,500 hours of community service from our student athletes. But what gets lost in that sometimes is that our coaches and our staff are an integral component to that. So oftentimes when our teams go off and do community service projects, our coaches and staff are right there alongside of them. So they are integrally involved in that. They buy into it. It's certainly something that we foster amongst our staff and coaches, and they're an integral piece. The other thing is, and there's a lot of things that happen outside of that component too. Our coaches are very willing to provide clinics and free clinics, and they're always engaging when we have groups come here to games, and those little types of things that go a long way towards fostering relationships in the community. And frankly, we talked about the transition of men's basketball with Jay and men's lacrosse with Coach Baxter. They are now living in the town of Fairfield. And for two of our highest profile programs to have those coaches be, community citizens is a big deal. And they are completely embracing that role, and that goes a long way towards kind of adding to that visibility and that connectivity between not only just Fairfield Athletics, but Fairfield University and the campus community. And that's a big part of what we do. It's really important.
Well, Paul, thanks for answering a few of those questions. And for you all at home who want to keep it asking, always want to hear your feedback about, how we're doing or, what perhaps could be coming in future projects. So make sure to send them in, fairfieldstags.com/askpaul. And one more thing before we go. We're in the President's Suite of Rafferty Stadium, as it's kind of our home base here from the director's chair. But it's important that we acknowledge the recent passing of Mr. Larry Rafferty, the class of 1964, who was captain of men's basketball and a tremendous supporter of not only the university, but also athletics as well. And obviously our thoughts are with the Rafferty family at this time.
Absolutely. I appreciate you bringing that up. Very emotional time for everybody who knew Larry. Amazing individual. And I have said this publicly, and it's really hard to nutshell what he meant to Fairfield University and to Fairfield Athletics and to so many people whose lives he touched. But just made an incredible impression on me in a very short period of time, just by virtue of the caliber of individual that he was. And I was fortunate to get to know him a little bit. I feel selfishly a little bit cheated that I didn't get to know him better over a longer period of time. He's that type of man and that type of individual. And that is clearly evidenced by the turnout at his celebration of life service that took place a couple weekends ago. So over 500 people turning out to pay their respects, and I'm sure there were hundreds more that would have come if they had been able to do so. And the outpouring of support is just indicative of the type of person he was and the lives he touched throughout the course of his life and career. So amazing man who was embodied what it meant to be humble and kind. Did so many great things for so many people, just in terms of his relationships with them, but clearly so supportive in so many ways. This house that he built, if you will, a shining example of that, but never wanted any attention for it, and always was, the sign of a leader is to be at the front when people need you and be in the back when the credit is passed out, and he embodied that to a T. Incredibly blessed and proud to know him. So sad for his family and for those he touched to have him no longer with us, but he's always going to be in our thoughts, and we're all blessed and all better for having known Larry Rafferty and his influence on us.
Well said. So that's going to do it for this episode of From the Director's Chair. Thanks as always for watching. Until next time, for Paul Schlickman, I'm JJ Duke. Go Stags.